Hey everybody, welcome to Week in Review. If this is your first time watching, I want you to know we do this as a service to help you, especially during these busy times. And now as we're in a holiday season, man, it is going to be even busier for many of us. But you know, we do this because we want you to be able to look back over the week that, we just finished and take a look into the week ahead, save you the time by highlighting and pinpointing from a biblical worldview what are the major issues and themes and hot button issues of our day. Now, I want to begin. I'm going to try to cover about 5 of them for you. And I want to start with this. I believe that during this time, even though it's been a chaotic and turbulent time, God wants us to have and cultivate a grateful heart, a thankful heart. And do you know that you really are increasing the quality and the length of your life by embracing this directive from God? God tells us rejoice always and give thanks in all circumstances. Now, I was in Atlanta recently and I was watching my grandson's ball games. And as I was there, I interacted with people. And one of the men I interacted with, listen to this, was from Russia. Now, I was in Russia when the Soviet Union came apart and it was dismantled. It was over. And Marxism failed once again. But this man from Russia, I asked him what was his observation of American people as he has been in this country for quite a while. And without any hesitation, he simply said, I don't think most Americans realize how good they have it here. In other words, we take things for granted. And during this season, it's not just a matter of, Thanksgiving and that's a holiday and let's move on. No, we want to have a thankful heart as a lifestyle all throughout the year. And during COVID-19, I heard of an older man that was in his 80s and he was in the hospital. And what did he face? Well, he was near death, but he was a poor man and he made it through. And before he was discharged, the medical personnel, they gathered around him, and it was an amazing scene as he was crying uncontrollably. He had been on a ventilator and he made it through. And as he was crying, they tried to comfort him, and this one nurse said, "It's okay, Jim. It's okay, Jim. The ventilator, the coverage of that financially, it's going to be taken care of." And he looked at them with tears and he said, "Well, you know what? I'm not worried about that. I'm confident of that." But he said, "I'm crying because while I've been here, this is the first time in over 80 years of my life that I've realized I've never had to pay 1 penny for the air that God gives me to breathe every day." We don't want to take things for granted. And in this season, let's cultivate a grateful heart. Let's remember that it's not just a matter of, I can have better sleep and a better family and relationships with friends, and I can reduce my blood pressure. Those are all positives. But we don't want to be negative. We don't want to be a Debbie Downer. We don't want to be a person that really, when you come into a room, people kind of back away. We should shine. Jesus said that, and he said, "Do all things without grumbling or complaining." And what? That we're to shine as lights in this world. So can we intentionally, during this season, cultivate a thankful heart? I call your attention to Charisma News and other websites. There's an article that I did, a commentary, and some podcasts that'll amplify this, but I trust it'll be an inspiration and an encouragement to you. Now, I want to talk about Donald Trump, the election, and where we're at. Now, again, when you record something like this, things change. There's a lot of things in play, but there's a lot of questions that still remain. And I believe that we need to endure. We need to continue to pray for our president. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Now, if there is a change, that could be in January the 20th. But the media is rushing and, they're projecting it. And Mr. Biden loves it. President-elect, they use a fake symbol to already project this kind of an image. He is not any president. And we need to pray for our president and continue to pray for attorneys that are at work. But I don't want to give anybody false hopes. I'm praying for breakthrough. I know with the situation in Pennsylvania, turn that thing and there's 20 more electoral votes. But right now we have to recognize the chances are slim that there's going to be some kind of major turnaround. Courts are reluctant to overturn an election. And I'm not a man of doubt, fear, and unbelief, and I'm not confessing negative things. I'm confessing positive, but it's a time we need to continue to pray and recognize, you know what, this is a nation right now, tragically, that is not characterized by systemic racism, but systemic, I believe, corruption. And I believe there was fraudulent elections. And I don't even like to use the term mischief, or there's always some shenanigans. This has been criminal activity, and it is being documented, and we have to have compelling, without a doubt, evidence if there's going to be a major turnaround. But the questions arise right now. Many people say, Donald Trump, his future. Well, I'd say this, he's not going to go away. The man drew 72 million, maybe even more than that, popular vote in this nation. He gained 80% of the counties in the United States. Now you say, well, Biden got New York and he got California and Illinois, of course, and that's the populous area, and that's where you get those electoral votes. But when you look at Donald Trump, this is a man that really has been a pioneer. And he is a man that has stood strong on principle. And he's been there for us, and we need to be there for him. Now, the question is, people say, what's he going to do? Some people say, well, maybe he's going to form his own cable network or be a part of a new initiative along these lines. Well, that might be. I want you to know in history, there has been a president, Grover Cleveland, and in the mid-1800s, he was a very strong reformer like Donald Trump. He won his election. And then when it came time for the, second time around, he lost. And you say, well, did he just fade off into the sunset? No, he waited out those 4 years. And guess what? He ran again. It was rematch time. And we don't know if that's what God's will be. And all we can do right now is pray. And we also need to rejoice. There has been no blue wave. All the media and the alignment of the corrupt media with the Dem Party and all the rest of that hasn't come to pass. In fact, you know what? Every House seat won over liberal Democrats was either a minority, a woman, or a veteran. Did you hear that? That's the people that stood with our president. And so when you hear these reports of, these are white supremacists and deplorables, and these are racists and bigots, and you got to reject that and be discerning and recognize what you've heard in the past weeks and what you'll continue to hear. You got to be sharp and alert, and also winsome when you engage people and talk to them about this very sensitive topic. Now, another thing I wanted to raise from the past week, and maybe you saw it, was, I don't know if you're aware, but former President Obama has a new book. It's called The Promised Land. And he was on 60 Minutes, and he was out on the BBC, and he was interviewed. Now, if you watched it, you would see, and you might say, I couldn't watch it. Well, I felt the same way. I waited a day or two, but when I watched it, I thought, this is a very intelligent man. This is a man who's also very slick and very careful and very clever. But, Scott Paley on CBS 60 Minutes, the questioning of the president was almost, you could have put rose petals on the ground, and you could have, put the fans on him like he was a pharaoh. Softball, Nerf questions, and there's no challenging of the president on his comments. And he's making comments in England and here that somehow there are people that, they follow somebody that's a menace, and that Trump is, somebody that is dishonest, he's a liar, and, all of these things. And Michelle Obama, she says the same thing. Oh, Trump, he lies, and he does this, he's dishonest. And then you have others that'll come along and say the same thing. Whoopi Goldberg on The View was saying, suck it up, suck it up, suck it up. And it's like, hey, now it's time, get in line. But we need to pray, I believe, for our president, and pray for him, whatever is going to happen. And we're praying, and I trust there can be divine intervention. We need to recognize what has happened, and that there has been, I believe, clear-cut fraudulent and corrupt activity. Hey, come on. If you watch a program like The Voice, isn't it amazing how many minutes they can, tabulate and announce 100 million votes or something like that? Well, I go to Kinko's all the time. You go in, man, you have to have clear-cut identification and all the rest of that. but somehow mail-in ballots, and we don't need transparency and integrity. We need to be very aware of what has happened. And when the president makes statements, President Obama from the past, he forgets, or conveniently forgets, how he was fawned upon and adulated, and his press conference, oh, how they loved him. And now he questions why Obama, why President Trump has been, so strong and brutal and attacking. Well, one president didn't have to face what he did, and for 4 years he was under that attack. And I believe he weathered it, and he said in the beginning, and has kept his word, he was going to do his best to drain the swamp. So we need to be aware, and I'd say be careful. Christina Amanpour on CNN, this is an Iranian woman, journalist. She hates Donald Trump. And when she reports on him in the past few days, she's talking about Germany and Hitler and comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. To me, this is unconscionable, and we need to be very discerning at this time in history. Now, I want to mention something else that's taken place, and that has been Mr. Joe Biden. He's calling in his speeches right now that we all come together. It's time that we unify. It's time to, engender peace. Well, you got to say, wait a minute. We've just gone through 4 years of nonstop attack. We see Black Lives Matter, Antifa. We see the Democratic leftists and extremists nonstop attacking and mocking and putting down our president and those that are conservative. You've got Candace Owen, a conservative woman now, suing Facebook because she said the censorship and suppression of free speech, this has got to stop what they're doing to me. Prager University that puts out, wonderful educational videos free. Well, in a school, in a high school, Mr. Prager, Dennis Prager said they pulled the plug on that because they don't want this to go forth. And we need to be aware of this that's taking place. But Mr. Biden is saying, peace, it's time for peace. Do you know in the book of Jeremiah and Ezekiel, it warns us about leaders that say, peace, peace, when there is no peace? We need to be very, I'd say, again, discerning, and we need to recognize schemes and tactics to try and seduce people and have people, just go along with a party, and let's talk about the party and what their platform is. And that leads me to my last point here, and that would be this. And I say this with all respect. There's a man of God that I have loved and respected and still do, but before the election, his name, John Piper, a senior, a giant in the faith, took a position of, well, I don't believe, voting for Trump or even Biden. It's kind of like, I can't do it. Well, I believe, Mr. Piper, and I say this respectfully if you see this, that you've taken offense at Donald Trump's life. You don't like the tweets. You don't like some of the behavior in the past. But I call out for redemption of an individual and change. And I would say we have to be very careful. And when you basically talk about, the falsehood of of policies and laws that protect life and freedom are more, precious than being a certain kind of person, then that somehow becomes the justification for not supporting somebody like a Mr. Trump. Well, I would say, I think we need to look at a man's full character. I look at David in the scripture, a man that was a murderer and an adulterer. And yet, did we cut him slack and say, yes, look at the Psalms and let's preach from them? Donald Trump exhibited lack of character in some areas, but was it enough to, by your example, take a position that bowed out? And as a result of people following your example and bowing out, we have what? The possibility of a party that is endorsing all kinds of leftist policies that would make socialism our form of government, policies that really would open doors for immigrants and full medical care, and you can go on down the line. Drug legalization. Look at what's happening in Portland, Oregon right now. They've legalized drugs, not just marijuana, that's been done, but heroin and cocaine and methamphetamines. You say, are they doing that? Sure. And the Dem platform is what? supporting legalization of marijuana. And the whole idea is this is not something that's, dangerous, that criminals that are in prison now for drugs, let's let them go because they're victims. They're the victims of, a corrupt society, a racist society. And I would say harmless. Drugs are harmless. And what's said, maybe you're aware, they'll say, well, we need to get them out of jails and just help them with educational programs because these are victimless crimes. Victimless? You know what? Do you know that probably 65 to 70% of adult abuse and neglect of children comes from individuals that are involved with substance abuse? And now we want to endorse that, set an example for young people, make it sound like it's innocent, and a party get behind it and support it. We've got to look at a platform and what a party represents. And I would say when I look at Donald J. Trump, I see character in areas like treatment of his family. I see character in terms of avoidance of all alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. I see a man that has a work ethic that is just off the charts. I see areas of character in terms of generosity. And how about perseverance under attack? How about, integrity in fulfilling promises, which he has, promises made and promises kept? How about areas of character in terms of appointment, I should say commitment to the sanctity of human life and protection of the unborn? Donald J. Trump, the most pro-life president America has ever had. How about in terms of love of country, respect for laws? You could go on down. And also just the fact that as Christians, we should afford people second, third, and fourth chances. And so I pray, Mr. Piper, if you ever see this or those that were influenced, that you take another look at this because I believe tens, maybe hundreds of thousands followed your example and bowed out from any voting. We're called to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world. We're called to hold back decay. And so that's a little bit of a look back over the past week and looking forward. I pray we're all going to have a wonderful holiday season. I went through it. I went through difficulties, and I think maybe you'd say it's hard to be thankful as I started today. Do you know my wife and daughter and I, we got COVID. Yeah, and we came through it. It wasn't devastating, so I don't want you to be fearful. You might say, well, what else? You live a pretty good life. It's pretty easy. Well, you know what? The other day, I bit into a pizza. Nothing hard, no ice, no rock candy. And I broke my tooth. Went to the dentist yesterday. Crown. Oh, about $1,500, $1,600 for a crown. And I fell a while back. I broke my kneecap. We're still waiting for our tax refund. We filed it 8 months ago. That's due us. We've tried, we've called, we've done everything. We still haven't received it. My daughter had a 40th birthday. It was a milestone, all kinds of great plans. Everything vaporized because of COVID-19. But I can tell you, my wife and I and my daughter in the midst of this, like I trust you, we are going to be grateful unto God, not for everything, but in everything, in believing God works all things together for good to those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So as we look back over the past week and as we look ahead, let's go forward knowing the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that grows brighter and brighter until full day.